a real tough one to take for Spurs. How do you reflect on it, Tal, just hours after being at the stadium?
Frustrated is the word I think myself and a lot of people are feeling. It is just frustration because similarly to that Chelsea game, the beginning, half less, but say first half, we were all over them. We could have been 4-0 up. And I think it's so frustrating to concede, have VAR intervene, go back to take the lead, and then you concede again for half time. And it just takes it out of you, and you just think, here we go again. And you could almost preempt what was going to happen in the second half that almost did. It changed a lot, but I think we're all frustrated. The actual stats themselves are crazy. We had so many chances at goal and scored one goal, which, is not good enough. In the final third, we just were not clinical at all. And to win football games, you've got to score the goals. And that didn't happen, especially with all the offsides and everything else in between. I think there was just a growing frustration in the ground. The more decisions that either went against us, whether it was, not getting a second yellow or VAR or an offside or something, it was just kind of mounting up, and everyone, as you always do, bounce off each other. And it was just a bit like, it was just so many chances that didn't kind of come across. And I think it just felt like we should have won today and we didn't win. And off the back of the last two as well, I think we needed it. And where we didn't kind of get it, it was just deflating. And I think everyone's in that head of, we've got City next, it's going to be 4, and are in that pessimistic space. And I just think we needed that.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite happen. So it just feels frustrating. But look, I'm not going to be super doom and gloom, because I think that we're all very aware that Ange is our guy. He's excellent. He's in a really tough spot with suspensions, injuries and everything else. So it's not him. It's just a short-term period of which, we're going to struggle and are struggling. But look, onwards, long-term, we're going to be great. It's just this period we've got to work out how we're going to get to the other end, because 3 defeats is not good for anyone, especially if we were doing so well. We were on such a good streak, and obviously all streaks come to an end, but it's like when it rains, it pours. And we are in the puddle.
Stick or twist, Romero? Stick or twist?
Do you know, I think up until probably the last 10 games, 11 games before we did that moment of madness, I would have said Ange's changing him. And I still think those 10, 11 games have shown me
he has changed him, but maybe there isn't enough magic in any wand on earth.
What I can tell you, TJ, is with that stat you've read out there, that can't carry on. You cannot have somebody that you rely upon as your vice captain if that is the ratio in terms of
unavailable. And Tal, that'd be brilliant if somebody's listening, if they could find out what is the percentage of suspension to injury, that'd be wonderful.
I think for me, I think he's still a wonderful player that clearly for Ange has done and drawn something towards him for enough to give him the vice captaincy. You've got to remember, Ange only worked with the guy for a couple of months, if that. I mean, bearing in mind this guy would have been away international duty. He saw enough in him, and I want to feel that so far of Ange, I do trust his judgment. So that's how I stand on it. Russ, where do you stand on Romero at the moment? Because I think the key is, I think many people are angry at Romero for us being in this situation.
Yes,
it was self-inflicted, right?
I'm in that camp. I think from that incident, what happened later on in that game, and what is the mess that we're now in, all was precipitated from that moment of madness where he went over the top of the ball, and that was it. It was good night, Vienna. And you're so right, Rick. We have to be able to rely on our central defenders and vice captains. And if you look at central defenders, I watched the City-Liverpool game the other day. Matip, what a player he is. How reliable is he? How skillful is he? How commanding is he?
He was free.
Well, okay, that's a whole different discussion. But you take my point.
Yeah.
That these centre-backs are out there. And, I don't like that I'm reading like we all are at the moment. Well, Tottenham are looking at this player from Barcelona, but Romero might have to go to Barca. It doesn't.
Crazy.
That's not come from the club. You know, we've seen it all before.
They're not going to let Romero go. I mean, look, I think the fact of the matter is, I'll let you come back on it, Russ, as well here. They're not going to let Romero go, but I think, again, I think it's what it is a definitive season for him to come back now and prove his worth to Ange, prove his worth to the team, prove his worth to the fans, that we're not going to see those moments of madness that we've seen in previous seasons. Right, Russ?
Yes. I wouldn't get rid of him. He was doing so well up until when. But it's obviously still in him. And, TJ's probably right. You'll never get it out of him. But Ange will have a go.
Yeah, not entirely. I think that will always be there, Russ. I think we probably all agree on that. But, again, speaking of the famous number 10, who, of course, is plying his trade over in Miami for whatever reason at the moment. But, he said he's the best centre-back in the world. So I'm not saying for a second that we should sell him, but there is something else that just needs to be said to this guy, because I'm just trying to remember of one particular incident on a football pitch being quite so seismic with regards either a positive situation or a negative situation. You're absolutely right. That sending off against his own countrymen, of course, was the destruction of this wonderful ride that we've been on thus far. And the margins at the upper echelons of sport are too fine to have one person be able to derail us to that degree. Making him vice captain, I thought, was a very clever step. I've said this on the show before. It's like making the naughty kid at school the hall monitor. You give them a little bit of responsibility, you give them a nice sash, and it makes them kind of settle down. I've worn that sash myself, was very naughty at school, and it had a tempering effect to a degree. And so I thought that was smart, but he has to curtail that. You'll never get rid of it, but he has to curtail it.
We were bossing it. Him and Lascelles looked absolutely excellent together. He literally got up, but he had to go off, and not for the first time. And you know what? Matty Cash, badly injured, Matt Doherty, a couple of seasons ago. And the Spurs players, they hadn't forgot. The Spurs fans, they hadn't forgot. And it's such a shame for Bentancur and, of course, for us. He got a standing ovation as he hobbled off. And for Bentancur, that was his first start since February, when he lasted, obviously, of course, that ACL. He lasted only 32 minutes. It is brutal. First start in 9 months. And, again, that performance I thought was just superb. He was a hybrid box-to-box, deep-lying playmaker that we were all crying out for. But, I think I said this, before he came off, he really hurt Villa in the way he carried the ball with his creative passing. He actually infiltrated Villa's high line. And I think, if anything came out of that game, it really was that we need to keep him fit, because he's one of the most expansive passers that Spurs have got in the squad. And again, just to bring you up to date as things stand, after the game, he hobbled through the mix zone, clearly in a lot of pain, and said, not great, not sure if it's his ankle. It wasn't a great tackle. I thought he started the game ever so well. I thought it was the reason we got a real good foothold in the game. He's such a creative player. It's the last thing we needed, another injury. So disappointed to lose him, but we're yet to see the full extent of it. Obviously, we'll update you if we get any news on that. There's been no news today on that. But Russ, I do want to get your thoughts on Matty Cash, not for the first time, lunging himself in to a Spurs player. Villa, I think, to their credit, at half-time, thought, we can't risk this guy. They got him off because, quite frankly, I think 10 minutes later, could have actually gone sent off. And I think he was very lucky to stay on the pitch. Horrific challenge, Russ. Nowhere near looking to play the ball.
No. In another game, another player doing that, it's a red card. But in this game, it wasn't, and I don't like to see it at all. I mean, it was unpleasant, and we've lost Bentancur thuggery. Yeah, well, I'm not sure it was thuggery, but it just is not the sort of tackle that you expect a pro to do on another pro. But he's got form, and
nowhere near
so
it,
many
Russ.
people.
Nowhere near the ball. That's nowhere near the ball, was he? Nowhere near it.
Exactly. And, we've had one or two of our players, similar situations and less than that, get into real trouble. So there is a little bit of inconsistency, I think, among officials in this Premier League, but that's another discussion for another day. But I don't like to see it, and you know, we are on the wrong end of it again. And from what you were saying there, I thought it would just be an ankle knock, but if he's hobbling and saying it's not good, he knows, doesn't he?